Is God still doing miracles today, and are we able to be a part of them and see them?
Yes.
I want to drill into that today. We are reading 1 Kings 17 to 19. Basically, this is where most of the stories that you know about Elijah are. So if you're aware of who Elijah is, if you're aware of the things that Elijah did, most of those stories are contained here in 1 Kings 17 to 19. We kind of get introduced to the dude. There's like the big fiery showdown. He finds Elisha and like anoints him, or like, I don't know if he anoints him or just like
Throws his cloak on him.
he hangs out with him. And there's all the confrontations. There's the grumpy fit. It's all here.
Grumpy fit.
Yeah, where God's just like, hey, you need a nap and you should eat something.
Got you. Well, I really like these chapters. When I used to teach third grade back in the day, this Christian school, these were, like, this was a part of our Bible curriculum, looking at some of the experiences or written histories of Elijah and, like, what he did. So I always kind of thought of him as kind of like, whoa, he's like this kind of snarky guy because he's out here talking to all these prophets of Baal, like, all right, guys, well, if you don't believe that God is the only God, then I will literally stand here and make you look like a fool. When he puts up the altar, and there's two altars, and the deal is if whatever one lights on fire, that is the true God. So like these guys are fumbling around, nothing's happening for their altar that is out for Baal to light on fire. Nothing happens after them like crying out to him. And Elijah's just kind of like just gives it to him like, oh, is your God like on the toilet or something? Like
He really says that too.
Yeah, he does. And that's why it's just like, oh my word. Like this guy, I don't know. He knows that God is real and
He really
he's not afraid.
he should have been more respectful.
I don't know. Anyway, so it's really interesting to see like that instance go down. But as a result of it, so like he's definitely like, oh my God is so powerful, whatever. But as a result of it, all these prophets are put to death. And then
450.
Yeah,
at
that's
least.
a lot. And
So this whole like fiery showdown is Elijah versus
450
at
prophets.
least 450 prophets, and it does seem like quite a few people are bystanders.
So after that happens, Jezebel is like super ticked and she like wants to kill Elijah. So Elijah, again, who's just coming off of this like high, like, yeah, my God just did what yours couldn't do, knowing that God is so powerful, becomes very terrified of Jezebel and runs away. So I think it's just interesting to see, because I think that happens in our own lives too. Like we can see God do awesome, amazing, miraculous things because I believe that still happens today. Like God works in miraculous ways in our own lives and the lives of people around us. But we can so quickly forget about it or be like, oh yeah, that was cool, but also I'm like really terrified and I don't know how real God is in this moment.
Let's set this all into context. So we have been talking about how there is evil king after evil king after evil king after evil king. Mm-hmm. And so yesterday we introduced Ahab as just another evil king. And today we're introduced to Elijah as the dude that kind of shows up from literally nowhere, Tishba, wherever that is, and is just like, oh, hey, Ahab, just so you know, it's not going to rain.
Yeah, that's true. We kind of missed that
And it
part.
just doesn't.
It's like the opposite of Noah.
It's just like so simple. It's like, oh yeah, by the way. So then he and apparently in between here, at some point, Jezebel is just like straight up murdering every prophet of God she can find.
Yikes.
Except for 100 that are like hidden in caves, different places. Mm-hmm. So it's a dark time. My favorite thing is to talk about how this is very similar to Judges, where it's like, hey, like if you want to serve God, you're going to die. That's how dark it is. And Elijah, we don't know who he is. We don't know where he came from. And he's just walking around being like, no, that's not how this is going to go. So it's cool that God raises up faithful individuals. And Elijah's not the only one. That's kind of a key part of this story. He raises up faithful individuals to be like, you know what? We have lost our way. and we need to find it now. And so there's this showdown where he is like doing a stand-up routine to these prophets of Baal. It's kind of hilarious. And God's just responding to Elijah all the time.
Well,
go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in between that showdown and him talking about no water or this like excessive drought, there is actually another instance where like God, in my opinion, it seems like there's like these miraculous things going on with people that he encounters. So
Oh, yeah.
after he talks about the drought, God tells him to go to, help me, I think, Zarephath.
Yep.
Which belongs to Sidon. And when he goes
and is
there,
outside of Israel. Jesus
Yes.
is going to use this story to embarrass the Israelites later on.
well, he actually refers to himself as a sojourner in this story. But anyway, he's told to go, like the Lord tells him to go there. And when he gets there, he's supposed to find some widow that's going to be like outside the city gate, just kind of wandering around, and tell her to make him or to bring him some water and make him some food. And what's crazy about it is like he just goes. And I know that there are like people that have come into our lives that like hear these types of things from the Lord, like go to this place and expect this to be there and you will be taken care of. Like we've actually talk to people who have experienced these types of situations.
We know people that live this way.
Yes. And so it was just kind of like, whoa, that stuff doesn't stop. Just because it's in the Bible doesn't mean it's not happening today.
We also 100% need to grow in living this way.
Yeah.
Like we are not great at this.
Yeah, for sure.
So you at
Hence
home
the
are
reason-
asking, why are we listening to you then?
That's the
I don't know.
reason the guy that we were talking to, it's his story. It wasn't ours.
Yeah.
However, Elijah goes, and once he gets to the city gate, he finds this woman, tells her what to do, and she's like, well, I'd love to help you with the water, and I'd love to help you with the drink, but like I have a little bit of flour left, and I have a little bit of oil left. And he's like, no, it's cool. Just like go make me one, and then make some for yourself and your son. So this widow goes, does it, and she has plenty to last them for several days. So like that to me is just like another instance of like, wow, he actually just listened. He did what he was supposed to, and like the Lord provided and did what he said he would do.
I definitely know stories of missionaries.
Yeah.
And I don't believe you have to be a missionary to see these things. I think what's interesting about missionaries is they are oftentimes very faithful to the Lord and oftentimes are relying specifically on God to sustain themselves.
Yep.
But I know a story I've heard a couple different times, like in different settings, where it's like, well, we didn't have money for gas and we need to drive from like this place to the next place. And we were like, God, like you got to sustain us. So they just started driving and they never ran out of gas. So that'd be cool if that worked for your budget. But usually it's people that are more concerned about more than just their budgets. So we have a good friend, Lalo, that is working in Juarez, Mexico right now today. Shout out to Lalo. That regularly is seeing miraculous things because he is like bringing the gospel to difficult places to bring the gospel, and it like that's his job, and it's not a paying job, it's just what he does. And so the Lord like personally takes care of him in pretty miraculous ways. If you want to get involved in supporting the work in Juarez, Mexico, send us an email, and it's amazing. I'd be happy to connect you. So there's tons of, I mean, we only read 3 chapters, and there are so many miraculous stories about the faith of Elijah and what God is able to do. Don't lose sight of the fact that God is using Elijah's faith to bring honor and glory to himself. So the point of Elijah's faith is not to get Elijah to be more famous. It's not to get Elijah more attention. It's not to get Elijah more fans. It is to make God's name big, because the place is just like the nation is evil and the kings are wicked and the prophets are wicked, and God is using Elijah to honor himself. And so you have this combination of God, who is all powerful, and Elijah, who is so faithful, who's able to do these incredible things. I do not believe that God has stopped doing these incredible things. In fact, James 5:17 says, and I don't know why I'm always referencing James, but James 5:17 says, Elijah was a man with a nature like ours, and he prayed fervently that it might not rain, and for 3 years and 6 months it did not rain on the earth. Then he prayed again, and heaven gave rain, and the earth bore its fruit. That James is referring to the power that is available to the church. And he's not like, there's not like a, and we can't do that anymore. There's not like a clear, like, and that's when God stopped. Like, James's expectation is that kind of faith and those kind of works are available to us today. I think we miss a lot if we choose to believe that they are done and we won't see them. I think what seems to be happening is that there is a lot of folks that are not, like, we're just not as faithful as Elijah. And I would love to be more faithful. The problem is, I think Elijah was made more faithful by going through those difficult things. And I would love to not go through difficult things. And so it's this combination of things of, like, we need to be living for God's glory. We need to be unafraid of difficult circumstances. We don't change the message because we're dealing with difficult things. And we walk knowing that God will deliver. And Christian history is full of men and women who walked in ways knowing God would deliver. And what's crazy is a lot of them, God didn't deliver until after they died. And so they didn't even get to see the fruit of what they were doing, but they bore incredible fruit. And so when you live in a way that says Jesus is bigger than I am, and your actions back it up, God does incredible things.
Yeah.
And I think that is a great lesson from Elijah. And we didn't even get into Elisha being a faithful servant, just like cutting up his oxen and burning them up. That's pretty wild. There's a lot here. And actually, to this day, you can go to Mount Carmel today, and there's a giant bronze statue, of Elijah confronting the prophets of Baal. It's pretty cool. But it's a real place. You can go see it. And I think, I don't know, I think these are just an inspiring couple of chapters. And I do think that this kind of faith is available today. I do think these kinds of miraculous things are available today. I think what has changed is us, not God.
Right. So I guess I kind of think that wraps up your part too. I think that kind of hit the nail on the head. But just remember to look for those things, because God didn't just stop working these crazy, awesome miracles in the times of the New Testament, the Old Testament. It's still happening today.
Believe God. Believe God. And if you have wandered away from him, know that he is merciful. He is gracious. He loves you. He wants you to come back. Many people saw the prophets of Baal being put to shame, and they were like, oh, shoot, God is real. I want to worship him. That's why Jezebel was furious. And so even in this crazy story about these prophets of Baal, there were people that saw the truth, responded to the truth, and God started to change things. So it's really interesting. There's a lot to dig into here. We did not by any means hit on all of it. But I think be faithful to the Lord. And if you're in a place where you know you haven't been, turn back to him and he will welcome you back. And then walk in a faithful way. So we'll be back again tomorrow. We'll see you then.
Thanks so much for listening to God's Plan, Your Part. If anything stuck out to you, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to receive a Bible, you can email us at godsplanyourpart@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please consider supporting us through the link in our description. We love that you're on this journey with us, and we hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.